Welcome back, everybody, to some more NBA 2K23 MyNBA content. Every year, whenever one of the new sports games comes out, I always like doing a fantasy draft video where we do a fantasy draft, we rebuild the team, and we ultimately win a championship. So that's what we're going to be doing here today, but with one small twist. I wanted to incorporate the eras that have been added to MyNBA. So we're going to be doing a fantasy draft, but with the Kobe era rosters of 2002. So this is going to be a fantasy draft of the NBA from 20 years ago. We'll be going with a serpentine draft, and the team I ended up picking was the Toronto Raptors. It doesn't really matter which team we pick because it is a fantasy draft, but we ended up getting the third overall pick. Kobe and Duncan went 1 and 2. Everybody else is still here. Now keep in mind, this is the season before LeBron got drafted, so obviously those guys aren't there. But I ultimately decided to go with Tracy McGrady because he's 23 years old. He's one of the highest rated players on the board. He seems to do very well in 2K Sim. And he's also locked up for 6 years. And as the salary continues to inflate, that's going to be a pretty team-friendly contract by the end of it when we're hopefully competing for a championship. The problem with getting the third pick is we choose very late. Here in round 2, I ended up going with 20-year-old Tyson Chandler, who hopefully will be an anchor for us down low at the center position. We do have a selection very early here in the third round. I ended up choosing Manu Ginobili, another guy who I've seen do very well in 2K Sim. This is Manu's rookie season. He is 25 already, but I am curious to see how he will do, whether we make him a starter or if he's the sixth man. With our next selection, we're going with 20-year-old Gerald Wallace, who ultimately developed into a pretty solid NBA player. Running the point, we're going to get Derek Fisher, the former LA Laker. In round 6, I wanted to get some good depth at center, so we went with the infamous draft bust, Michael Olowokandi, who's actually not too bad here. He just is coming off his career season. So this is really his peak, which obviously isn't great for a number 1 pick. Now in the 7th round, we need a power forward, and Dwight Mamba is here. He's actually quite young, only 24 years old, Brian Scalabrine. So now we're just really looking for depth. I selected Eduardo Najera in the 8th round. He'll give us some solid minutes on the wing. Rookie point guard Dan Dickola out of Gonzaga here in the 9th round. He appears to be a pretty good playmaker. Monty Williams in the 10th round, the current head coach of the Phoenix Suns. At this point in the draft, I'm just looking for people who I know, and he seems to be decent at everything. In the 11th round, we got some spacing with Fred Hoiberg, who of course is now the current head coach at the University of Nebraska. 3 rounds to go. We get Darvin Ham, the current coach of the Lakers, here in the 12th round. Again, there just really isn't much left. We drafted this Evan guy in the 13th round. He seems like a decent project at center. And then in the 14th round, it's bad. I mean, all these guys are just brutally terrible. I don't think any of them are real. We ended up selecting Roger Beck, a 26-year-old power forward. And then the Graham twins ended up being the last 2 picks. I don't think these guys are real, but they look alike. They have the same name, and they're the same age, so I guess they're twins. So we are hopping in the 2002 season. Of course, the LeBron draft class is coming up, along with Melo, Wade, and Bosh. I purposely made my team young, but not great, just so we would have an opportunity at a lottery pick. I think we're going to be quite good in the future, and we do have one of the highest-rated players in the league in T-Mac, who, of course, is back in Toronto, ironically enough. I don't think this team is a championship contender here in year 1, but the goal is to set ourselves up to be contenders in the future. And I do think we have some really good pieces here with T-Mac, along with Chandler and Manu and others. So Tim Duncan of the Pacers ended up winning the MVP. Yao Ming of the Wizards was the Rookie of the Year. Manu, 6th Man of the Year. You'll love to see it in his rookie season. Tim Duncan won the Depoy. Zydrunas Ilgauskas won the Most Improved. As for the All-NBA teams, I was hoping to see T-Mac. Unfortunately, he is not here. But we did have Manu Ginobili make the All-Rookie First Team, and I believe he was our only representative. The team... Oh, Dan Dickow made the second team. So the team did not make the playoffs, but we weren't actually that far off. We were 36-46. We were good for most of the year, but then T-Mac broke his leg and missed half the season, and the team kind of fell off a little bit. So we're not going to have the greatest of lottery odds, which is unfortunate, but McGrady was phenomenal up until his injury. Probably would have been top 3 for the MVP, and then everybody else was fine, but obviously the team really wasn't the same once Tracy McGrady got hurt. So, of course, we will not be participating in the playoffs. Simming forward, the Clippers beat the Bucks in 7. The only way the Clippers are going to win a championship, with Paul Pierce taking home the Finals MVP. That'll bring us to the 2003 offseason. Of course, the draft lottery is the main event here. We had the 11th best odds going into the lottery, and we end up at pick 11. So we don't hop up. So instead, we're going to do so manually. I ended up agreeing to a trade with the Portland Trailblazers to move up to the number 3 overall selection. We gave up a few future picks along with Gerald Wallace. I think it'll be worth it. So with the first pick, the Bulls end up selecting LeBron James. No surprise, I was not expecting him to fall to 3. So just like in the LeBron-MJ experiment I did, LeBron is a Bull. Carmelo Anthony goes number 2 to the Heat. I was targeting Melo with pick 3, so that's kind of unfortunate. I know Dwyane Wade looks like the easy play here, but we already have a very similar player with Tracy McGrady. And Chris Bosh really is not that much worse than D. Wade. So after thinking about it for a little bit, I ultimately decided to go with Chris Bosh. I think he's a better fit for what our roster needs. And just like T-Mac, we're bringing a former Raptor back to Toronto. Of course, Tracy McGrady and Chris Bosh played in Toronto a few years apart from each other, so Raptors fans never got to see them as a duo. Well, congratulations, Toronto Raptors fans. Now you will. Dwyane Wade ended up going number 4 to the Philadelphia 76ers. No surprise there. I wanted to be active in free agency, but we don't really have much money, as you can see. So because of that, I decided to make some moves. We traded 3 of our depth pieces to the 76ers for Malik Rose. He's a decent forward, along with a future first-round pick in the year 2006. So we clear up a lot of money here, but we still don't really have enough to go after one of the big fish. So I ended up making another deal with Minnesota. We gave up 3 more depth pieces, and we're going to get a first-round pick this year, and it's 2 stars. So we're hoping Minnesota's bad. They're not horrible. They have Grant Hill, Kenyon Martin, and Pau Gasol. So we'll see ultimately how good that team is. And now we have enough for a max contract. So Tim Duncan and Jason Kidd are by far the 2 guys who seem like they're the best free agents here. So they're going to be our 2 big offers, but we have 3 offers. So I ended up offering, obviously, those 2, along with Gilbert Arenas. We saw him do very well in the LeBron-MJ experiment I did. Unfortunately, Kidd and Duncan are going elsewhere, but Gilbert Arenas does accept. So we now have the new big 3 of Gilbert Arenas, Tracy McGrady, and Chris Bosh. I wanted to sign Wally Szczerbiak as well, but we didn't have enough money for both him and Arenas, and obviously we're picking Gun Gilly. So that's how we're going to spend our big money. We do have an extra $5.5 million, so I decided to offer that to forward Juwan Howard, the current head coach at Michigan. I think he can slide in and probably start at the 3. So overall, a really productive free agency for us. We ended up getting one of my top targets with Gilbert Arenas, who's going to be really good in the backcourt with Tracy McGrady. And we got Juwan Howard, who's a starting caliber player. We've got a set starting 5. We've got the best 6-man in basketball. The rest of our depth is a little bit questionable, but we've got a great starting 5, and obviously, again, Manu is the 6th man. But I feel like we need some more size. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring back Brian Scalabrine, and I can't trade for him. He's now on the Kings. So instead of Scalabrine at the 4, we're going to get Gary Trent Sr., another former Toronto Raptor, in exchange for point guard Dan Dickaw and a second-round pick. Of course, Gary Trent's son, Gary Trent Jr., currently plays on the Toronto Raptors. So with this fantasy draft, we're literally just building the Toronto Raptors. Who is Vince Carter? We might have to get him next. So the starting lineup will be Arenas, McGrady, Howard, Bosh, and Chandler. Manu is the 6th man. Fisher and Gary Trent also getting minutes. So the team was quite good this season. Kobe wins the MVP of the Grizzlies. LeBron wins the Rookie of the Year. Mike Dunleavy's 6th Man of the Year in San Antonio. Ben Wallace wins Depoy in Cleveland. Corey Maggette wins the Most Improved with the New Orleans Hornets. So Tracy made the All-NBA second team. His numbers are a little bit down from last year, but that's what happens when you add Gilbert Arenas and Chris Bosh, so I'm not surprised. T-Mac made the All-Defensive second team. Chris Bosh made the All-Rookie first team, averaging around 20-9. We ended up as the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, so a massive improvement here for our Raptors, who went 58-24, the only team ahead of us. The New York Knicks, led by Baron Davis, Jerry Stackhouse, and Sean Marion. So as we look at the numbers, unfortunately, Gilbert Arenas is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so he might miss some time in the playoffs, which isn't ideal because he had a very good season for us. So we're going to need probably Derek Fisher to step up. I assume they'll have him start at the point, and Manu probably keeps his 6-man start, although Manu's numbers really went down this year. I don't know why, but he had a certainly season of regression. So we have the New Orleans Hornets here in the first round. They're led by a talented backcourt of Jason Terry and Corey Maggette. They also have Bruce Bowen as well. He's a little bit older at 32. And they have rookie Nick Collison. Go Jayhawks. So we're going to simulate through. We win game 1, lose 2, win 3, lose 4. So we're splitting early. but we would win in 6. And now we play the Washington Wizards here in the second round. The Wizards don't have a great backcourt, unlike the Hornets, but they do have a very good front court with Shareef Abdur-Rahim, who had a great season, and 23-year-old Yao Ming. I'm definitely expecting it to be a challenge for us here, and it certainly is. We're down 3-1. Can we win Game 5? We do. We also take Game 6, so that'll bring us into Game 7. Can we force the Wizards to blow a 3-1 lead? Doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like Washington's in control, and they would end up steamrolling us through the second half, winning by 29 points. And ultimately, the Wizards did end up winning the finals, beating the Supersonics in 6 games, with Shareef Abdur-Rahim winning the MVP. So that'll bring us into our third offseason. The 2004 draft is upcoming. We do have a lottery pick projected 6 with the trade we made with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that pick ends up going to 7. This is the Dwight Howard draft, and there wasn't really anybody else in this class I wanted, so I kind of wanted to move up and get Dwight. The Bobcats are an expansion team now, so we have to leave one player unprotected. Seems like a pretty easy choice. Darvin Ham never even got picked by the Bobcats in the expansion draft, so ultimately we would end up keeping him, which isn't really a big deal because he's not all that good. So going into the draft, as I said, I wanted to trade for Dwight. We moved up with the Trailblazers last year to get Chris Bosh, and now we're going to try to do it again here, although this is the number 1 pick. I think that's going to be kind of hard, but we do have pick 7 that we're going to be able to use. So I try to offer all of our picks. They want Arenas. I'm not obviously going to do that. I did not want to give up Tyson Chandler if I didn't have to, but it seems like we're going to have to do that. So I tried doing it without pick 7. It's not going to happen. So we're going to have to trade both Chandler and pick 7 along with our other picks this year, and they accepted it. I know it's a lot, but it's probably worth it for a young Dwight Howard. So he teams up with Chris Bosh in the front court, and we've now got a core 4 of Arenas, McGrady, Bosh, and Dwight. Pretty scary. So going into free agency, there's not really a whole lot we have to do. We do have a couple guys with bird rights, Derek Fisher and Gary Trent, both of whom are pretty important depth pieces. I would like to bring them back. We don't have bird rights on Manu, though, and we don't have a lot of money to offer him, and it doesn't really seem like he wants to come back, which is not great. So he doesn't have a ton of interest now, but I'm not sure if he's going to take that short-term deal. We did get back Fisher and Trent, which is good. And then at the end of free agency, I offered for Mike Miller and Morris Peterson. They didn't let us get both, so we ended up with just Morris Peterson. And then sure enough, Manu ended up signing with the Blazers. So we lose Manu, we lose Tyson Chandler, but we add Dwight and we add Morris Peterson. So I think overall that's a net positive. Although Dwyane Wade does lose 3, he's now a 76. He did have a very good season for us last year, but I think we can upgrade. So we're going to be trading him to the Bucks for Al Harrington. I think Harrington's a better player at this point than Dwyane Wade. He can provide a similar role, probably as the 6th man. We are giving up a 2009 first-round pick, but I think that draft pick will just end up as some short kid out of Davidson who can really only shoot and does nothing else. So we're going to do that. We're going to get Al Harrington, and we've, again, got a really nice 6-man rotation with Derek Fisher and Gary Trent behind them. The starting lineup will be Arenas, McGrady, Morris Peterson, Bosh, and Dwight, with Al Harrington as the 6th man, and then Fisher and Trent as the other depth pieces. Again, I would have preferred a traditional backup center, but Chris Bosh can play the 5 when Dwight's out of the game. So Kevin Garnett ended up winning the MVP with the Detroit Pistons. Sebastian Elliott won the Rookie of the Year. I don't think he's a real person. Bobby Jackson, 6th man. LeBron Depoy. Dan Dickle, most improved with the Bobcats. He's been on 3 different teams in 3 years, but good for him, I guess. Gilbert Arenas ended up making the All-NBA first team along with Kobe at the guard spot. Shout out to Gun Gilly. Tracy McGrady made the 2nd team. He does have a sore left knee, but it looks like he'll be fine going forward. Thank goodness. And then Dwight ended up making the All-Rookie first team. He has a pinched nerve in his back. It seems like our players are always injured after every season. I don't get it. So we played the Wizards again here in the first round. We won 57 games. The only team above us was the Detroit Pistons. So we did win 1 less game than last year, probably because of the injuries. Tracy McGrady and Dwight Howard are both banged up, but they both have yellow plus signs next to their name rather than red plus signs. So I think that means that they can play through it. Obviously, it'll be painful, and they won't be quite as good, but they can play. So we face off against the defending champion Wizards here, who beat us in the second round last year. They still have Shareef Abdur-Rahim and Yao Ming, and they win Game 1. Not a great start. We got to get revenge on them, but we would end up winning the next 4. I don't know how they only finished as the 7th seed. So we play the Heat here in the next round. They have the dynamic duo of Rip Hamilton and Carmelo Anthony. He's averaging like 30. I wish we had Melo on this team, but Chris Bosh is cool too. We split the first two. We win Game 3 and Game 4 and Game 5. So we're going into the Eastern Conference Finals to face off against the Kevin Garnett-led Detroit Pistons. The rest of this team is very underwhelming, but KG won the MVP. He's been even better throughout the playoffs, and we would steamroll them, sweeping our way to the finals against the 7th seed Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were the 1 seed 2 years in a row and lost to the 8th seed. Now it's the 7th seed they make the finals, led by Kobe Bean Bryant. Again, the rest of this team is kind of underwhelming. Their next best player is Keith Van Horn, but they have Kobe, so that's how they got here. It seems like the teams with the super high picks, like the Grizzlies, Detroit, us, we all were really good. So we're currently up 3-1. We're going to simcast through Game 5. Can we take it in 5? It looks like we will. We have a big lead here late. We're up by about 30. So we're going to hop in and finish this game off. The Toronto Raptors have won the 2005 NBA Finals in 5 games. We built a super team here with this fantasy draft rebuild. Most of the guys we drafted are not on the roster. Obviously, our top pick was T-Mac. He's still here, but Tyson Chandler's gone. Manu Ginobili is gone. The only player I think we kept the entire time as a guy who actually got minutes, other than T-Mac, was Derek Fisher. And all the other players we acquired via trade or via draft, like with Chris Bosh and Dwight Howard, or with Gilbert Arenas via free agency. But there you go. Tracy McGrady wins an NBA championship in Toronto. What could have been? Same could be said with Chris Bosh. So both of them finally win rings here in Toronto for the Raptors, who get their first championship 14 years early. And sure enough, Tracy McGrady, our top fantasy draft pick, would end up winning the Finals MVP, averaging nearly 24 a game, along with 4 rebounds and 7.5 assists on 70% shooting from 3. So there you go. That's going to wrap up the video. I know this was a little bit quick, but the team ended up winning the Finals in 3 years, and we built a really fun squad with a super talented big 4 of McGrady, Arenas, Bosh, and Dwight. Let me know what other 2K experiments with the MyNBA eras would you guys like to see. Let me know down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.